I'd like to call this meeting to order. Welcome. This is the City Council meeting for Coeur d'Alene, Idaho. It is July 15, 2025. Kelly, would you do a roll, please?
English?
Yes, I am.
Wood? Here. Lucan?
Aquí.
Miller? Here. Gabriel?
Here.
Evans? Here.
Tonight, Red Dance from the Church of Jesus Christ Latter-day Saints is doing our invocation. You rise and rising for the pledge. Welcome, Richard.
Thank you. Our Father in heaven, we're grateful to be here this evening in a functioning City Council meeting, but we're especially grateful for the events of the last 3 months. In May, the Idaho legislator passed a resolution honoring the traditional family, and in June, our own City Council passed a similar resolution making the gold standard traditional families with natural father, mother, children, a way to flourish in our society. We're especially grateful for the events after June 29th, the fallen firefighters. The community spirit was so evident and so blessed by the leaders of this community, starting with Linda Coppice and her message from the Coeur d'Alene Chamber of Commerce to rally us together, and the parade. It's hard to speak about gratitude and reverence. In the parade, watching those 2 horses without riders and the International Association of Firefighters behind them, and feeling the community spirit so evident. We're especially grateful for so many individuals and businesses that stood out, whether it be the Coeur d'Alene Resort, the Coeur d'Alene Press, the Hagedorn Media Group, the International Association of Firefighters, and so many others who went beyond the call of duty, whether it be logistics or hosting or refreshments, flowers, attend, and just expressing their appreciation. We're grateful that the fallen families' mortgages have been taken care of, that so many other funds have been raised, that their husbands and fathers can no longer provide. And we're grateful for so many nonprofit and charitable groups in our community that are outstanding in the services they provide to us. We just ask that we'll be able to have the same community spirit as other hardships face us in the future. And this we say in gratitude in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen.
Christy, would you lead us a pledge, please?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Amendments to the agenda, Council. Any action needed? Next up, the comments. We do have a list there. We have it to be 3 minutes. Got a little fudge time today. Gookin agreed, so we're going to give a little fudge time.
Love fun.
Fudge with ice cream and nuts. We're trying to have some fun up here. All right, first up, Julie Amendor. Welcome, Julie.
Good evening, esteemed council members, Mayor. My name is Julie Amador, Professor of Mathematics Education and Associate Dean of Research Faculty Development at the University of Idaho here in Coeur d'Alene. I'm here on behalf of the University of Idaho Coeur d'Alene and specific concerning Agenda Item H2. First, I want to express our deepest gratitude for your tireless service to our city and community. Our CEO, Dr. Andy Fields, unfortunately had a prior out-of-state commitment, but he's live streaming the meeting right now and extends sincere appreciation for your work. As you know, the University of Idaho has been a cornerstone of higher education in our region for decades, with significant presence at the Harbor Center for over 20 years. Our long-standing partnership with LCSC at the Harbor Center has been invaluable, and their recent vacancy has presented us with considerable budgetary challenges. As a not-for-profit entity dedicated to provide educational opportunities in our region, this proposed sublease is crucial. It will enable us to cover operational costs and continue our vital work, supporting the community through education and research. We are incredibly enthusiastic at the prospect of the Coeur d'Alene tribe joining us at the Harbor Center. This collaboration holds immense potential for new partnership opportunities focused on education and research. The tribe's Natural Resources Department is deeply engaged in education, outreach, and community support within their Aboriginal homeland. This new location will significantly enhance the efforts and provide more accessible opportunities for all. We firmly believe this opportunity aligns perfectly with our master lease, which emphasizes education and research. We see this as a mutually beneficial partnership that will strengthen educational offerings and research initiative in our region. Thank you for your time and thoughtful consideration of this important matter.
Thank you, Julie. Appreciate that. Next up, Rachel Farmer. Rachel, welcome.
Good evening, Mayor and Council members. My name is Rachel Farmer, legally now Raven Dace. I am presenting North Idaho Pride Alliance this evening, reading a letter on their behalf in support of the HREI lease renewal. To the Coeur d'Alene City Council, we are writing on behalf of the North Idaho Pride Alliance to express our strong support for the Human Rights Education Institute's lease renewal. Since 2017, NIPE has maintained a valuable partnership with HREI, utilizing their facility for numerous community events and programs. The Human Rights Education Institute has established itself as a recognized space within the community, a resource that is essential for the populations we serve, who often face unique challenges and require welcoming, secure environments. In October 2019, NIPA moved into an office space at HREI to establish a physical presence in the community and provide safe haven for those we serve. While NIPA has since established our own operational office space, we continue to rely on HREI's facilities for community events and house our lending library there. This ongoing partnership demonstrates the vital role HREI plays not only for organization, for multiple community partners who depend on accessible, inclusive spaces. The Human Rights Education Institute serves as more than just a building. It represents a commitment to fostering understanding, education, and safety for all community members. Their continued presence in our city strengthens the work of our community and provides essential resources that would be difficult to replace. We respectfully urge the City Council to approve the lease renewal for the Human Rights Education Institute. Their work and the space they provide are invaluable assets to Coeur d'Alene. Thank you for consideration. On behalf of the North Idaho Alliance.
Thanks, Rachel. Bill Green? Well, Bill.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council members. Thanks so much for your service and for the opportunity to render an little opinion here. This is in reference to an article in the Coeur Press from June 26, which I think was a Thursday, regarding the community library, CIN and the CLN. I don't read, but here. So in the article, it started out by saying expresses concerns with CLN Community Library Network regarding policies for minor card holders. It stated in the paper that minors cannot access materials considered to be harmful to minors regardless of the parents' wishes. I like to point out several Idaho statutes. One is 321010, which is known as the Idaho Parental Rights Act, and it talks about the interest of parents include the duty and right to direct their children's destiny, including the upbringing and education. Idaho Code 181517B is the School and Library Protection Act, and subsection 2A, B, and C give very detailed descriptions of materials prohibited when they're harmful to minors. Subsection 3A, B, and C outlines the process by which the institution, library, or school can be held accountable for violation of the statute. Notice it's the institution that's accountable and not individual librarian. Subsection C clearly outlines the affirmative defense the institution has when it can be shown that a parent or legal guardian authorized a minor to access materials deemed harmful. Idaho Code 1517D Delta also clearly states an employee of a bona fide library or school institution is by that fact protected with an affirmative defense. Idaho Code 181514 gives a very clear list of definitions of all the terms related to the School and Library Protection Act. Along with all other terms listed in the statute, it clearly describes the meaning of, quote, harmful minors. The CLN minor card policy clearly follows these statutes. Minor card is for kids 0 to 17. There's a section for kids to 12, a section for kids from 13 to 17, and a general section for all. A minor can go anywhere in a library except to the spot where defined by the protection statute as harmful to minors will be shelved and segregated from the rest of the library in a section that is called the mature content section. Minors cannot go there unless accompanied by a parent or guardian and authorized by a parent or guardian. This honors the parent's right to access to any materials he or she deems helpful to their kids. It actually expands parental rights in the sense that a parent now has a right to be free of any concern about what their kids may encounter wandering around the library. Oh, gee, am I over yet?
Go ahead, finish.
So it's clearly, in the form the library has, clearly states all the statutes on the back when requesting a relocation. One trustee stated the CLN is determining what kids can read. It makes me sick to my stomach, is a quote. Another trustee said in the paper that CLN policies have gone beyond statutory duties of trustees and quoted the paper as saying it's taking away parental rights and we don't support that. A library staff person said in the paper that he would be upset if he had a child in the library system. I want to parent my child, I don't want them to parent my child, was the comment. I just want to point out that the library board is appointed by you guys, council. I just think that some of the things that was said in that article are unfair and inaccurate. And as that committee, which works for you, which works for us, I would hope that the council, maybe Mr. English, who's their liaison with the library board, can encourage them to be more accurate and more fair and clear about when they're making these comments in public, because what's said in the paper clearly conflicts with what the Idaho statutes say, in my opinion anyway. Defer to Mr. Adams. So I just would hope that you would take that into consideration and consider letting the library board know that it's important for them to be accurate and clear and fair in comments they make in public about the library system, whether it's CIN or CLN or their own. Anyway, sorry I went over time. Thanks so much for your time and attention.
Thank you, Bill. Next, Jeanette Lester. Welcome, Jeanette.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor Govers, council members, staff, and community. Tonight, you have before you a new lease proposal for the Human Rights Education Institute to continue occupying its historic Battery Railway Station in beautiful Coeur d'Alene City Park. We have been its longest known resident in 22 years and are an established beacon of hope for our community, citizens, businesses, and visitors as they enter the hub of our downtown sector. Before I continue, I'd like to share a special appreciation the Parks and Recreation staff serve surrounding building. They have been generous and efficient partners, and we are grateful for their support to help us maintain this beautiful icon and the surrounding park. It is one of the most beautiful places in all of Coeur d'Alene, and I especially enjoy working there. We also would like to thank the city attorney and the city manager for their extensive hours put into the most recent lease negotiation. We feel very confident that the lease demonstrates the active partnership, both mutually benefiting both parties and our community the most. HRA has been in existence 27 years, providing resources to the most vulnerable and educating our community on human rights issues that impact us broadly, regionally, locally, nationally, and globally. There are many advocacy agencies, but we are rare, only one of a couple dozen in the entire United States that focuses on education. At the Human Rights Education Institute, it is our mission to celebrate diversity and human rights by educating, raising awareness, and recognizing the value of all humanity. We do this through education programs and events that bring unique perspectives for discussion and provide proactive solutions to challenging community issues. The way I like to describe this to the general public is if your rights have been violated, like by an employment person, then we send you to the Idaho Commission of Human Rights. But if 5 people's rights have show up at my door, we work at the Idaho Commission of Human Rights to provide education to that business. That's our role. We are so very lucky to have the Institute centrally located in Coeur d'Alene, Idaho, with a mission focus in eastern Washington, northern Idaho, and western Montana. We serve 55 school districts in that region. Tonight, I am here to encourage you to learn more about HRI and the services we provide. We are on the front line of bullying prevention measures in our school districts, and we work closely with counselors, SROs, social workers, and mental health providers. We track discrimination and harassment incidences and share data with national, state, and local officials. We provide resources and referral to appropriate agencies when there is potential to harm citizens. I continue?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. Participate at state and local collectives that address the need of foster youth, both unaccompanied and those being transferred out of harmful situations. We have social work internships that serve in cooperative places such as local schools, the Safe Passage Children's Resource Center, and Family Assessment Center at Children's Village. We often find the wandering citizen needing support, whether homeless or alone, or looking for a meal, which we provide. We supervise more than 15,000 hours per year of youth and adult court-appointed community service hours and work closely with diverse programs. We are one of 2 entities that can supervise a child under the age of 16 due to our strict background checks. We are host to a human rights consortium that focuses on training with companies and partners. The Idaho Human Rights Commission under the Department of Labor. We have established a regional accessibility committee and a new body of work that's just beginning, centered on the challenges that individuals with disabilities face in our community. We partner with more than 4 dozen other critical action nonprofits in the region for meeting-based awareness events and community conversations that align our mission and community needs and issues. We partner with the Coeur d'Alene Tribe and Coeur d'Alene Casino and other ethnic groups to bring local cultural heritage to the front. We are a member of the Coeur d'Alene Arts and Culture Alliance, lead off exhibits for the monthly art walk. We serve on the Regional Strengthening Families Leadership Board, which is a coalition that serves to protect children from trauma, and participate on the Idaho Nonprofit Center State Conference team. We have been sought out to train other nonprofits in our volunteer and grant writing models because they are exceptional. We have 53 student and job internships in the last 5 years, many of which have become military officers, lawyers, international peace workers, teachers, social workers, scientists, police officers, environmentalists, forestry, and much more. We are a shelter in place for the community buildings and training locations for multiple first responder agencies in the region where speakers are hosted. Including, we've been through an extensive negotiation, which I again appreciate so much. And I am certain there are many questions. We consider ourselves a collaborative partner and share lead parts throughout our strategic plan in the previous CA 2030 and Vision CDA Action Plan. On behalf of the board and 5 volunteers, share in our mission, we respectfully request the approval of our new lease and help HREI maintain its stronghold as a light of hope to those that it. We look forward to our continued partnership. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeanette. Susan Coates. Welcome to town, Susan.
Thanks. Good evening, Council and Mayor, staff, and also our community. Thanks for Grace for that extra minute tonight. National Disability Independence Day is on July 26th, and it commemorates the signing of the American with Disabilities Act, the ADA, on the same day signed in 1890. The day celebrates the anniversary of the ADA 35 years ago, and also serves as a way to bring awareness and break down barriers that individuals with disability are faced with every day. This year, the theme is, "We belong here and we are here to stay." People with disabilities have more visibility than ever before, thanks to much work done by so many over the years. They are no longer locked away in institutions to be excluded from mainstream society, but now they are likely to be recognized for their abilities, gifts, talents, skills, and also freedoms that are finally being recognized by society at large. Stigma still exists, and things will only change with more opportunities for awareness and understanding. The ADA provides protection from employment discrimination as well as better access to goods, services, and communications for people with disabilities. This National Day marks a timeline of change that has developed over the past 35 years, where each change improves mobility and safety for people with disabilities. Beyond structural changes, the ADA Act has motivated designers to enhance technology. Often, physical limitations restrict a person's ability to access legal or health information, and new assisted technologies make it possible to obtain the necessary information. Accessibility improves, the world continues to change in other ways too. Many of today's brick and mortar businesses are ADA compliant. Not all of them, but most of them. However, as more businesses switch to online versions, their websites need to be accessible too. With each advancement in technology, designers need to incorporate multifunctional approaches to fit every ability. This day celebrates freedom the ADA inspires with forward-thinking design and technology. If you are an employer or designer or city leader, consider how accessible your business is to people with disabilities as consumers, but also as prospective employees, producers. The ADA empowers people with disabilities to speak up their rights too. Please offer them a seat at a table. In honor of ADA Day this year, I'd like to say thank you to some of those who are making a difference in awareness and inclusion, making our community more accessible in North Idaho. First, the Museum of North Idaho for their accessible patio, ramp, and elevator to the 3rd floor of their new building. Their offices are on the 3rd floor, and this elevator indicates they recognize they can hire someone who uses a mobility device. I would also like to recognize the spacing inside the new museum for their large area between displays that make the museum more accessible inside as well as outside. I would also like to recognize Jeremy Seda, IT Accessibility Coordinator at North Idaho College, for his work to bring the annual Accessibility Camp EDA to NC. This year, the symposium is on July 30th and 31st at the Edminster Student Union Building, and features speakers providing formative talks and workshops on many topics of digital accessibility and document accessibility. The last thank you goes to CityLink, all they do to make our community accessible with their transportation services. Public transportation is more than just going from point A to point B. It's about access to opportunities and community engagement, allowing individuals with disability to navigate the communities independently. Paratransport provides safe, convenient transportation options for people who are unable to utilize fixed route service due to limitations. I'd like to encourage other area businesses and organizations and churches to follow suit of the three I mentioned tonight and make attempts to gain awareness and understanding in your space and world for greater access for people with disabilities, to not only be included, but to belong, not just consumers, but as also producers. ADA Day, July 26th. Thank you.
Thanks, Susan. Lee Wayman. Lee, welcome.
My name's Lee Wayman. I'm a member of the Medical Reserve Corps. I attended the 11th Avista Public Safety Power Shutoff Preparedness presentation at Panhandle Health District on the 24th. The presentation was done by Todd Keesby, and he said at that time that only 13 were planned to identify wildfire risk features in our area, and the criteria which Avista will use to respond to power shutoffs. Avista expects more power shutoffs, longer durations. I was able to talk to Councilman Gabriel the meeting they had on the 7th, and he was going to see what options are available to tell people about the change in the Avista power shutoff. And I've talked to other people. Most people were not aware of any of this. And as a consequence, I printed out these. And the highlighted part shows them where they can go online and access the complete presentation. It's I hope the council will look into this serious public safety issue, and appreciate that you allowed me to speak about it.
Oh, we appreciate your concern.
Thank you again for your consideration. And if anybody would like this, so they can look up about this presentation. Are there if there's other people that are interested in looking at the presentation?
Thank you, Lee. We're moving along.
Politician. Okay.
Thank you.
Handing them out.
Announce City Council. Announcements.
Well,
Mr.
I would
Rush.
just acknowledge that, we're in tight budget season, and that's for sure and everything, but within the last week or so, I thought we had a press release and some stuff from governor and the actual end of the year city state revenues in some categories actually produce some surplus, and it won't dig us out of everything, but that's way better. I couldn't dig down to see what liquor tax was doing, but some of the other ones. So at least that's I'm hoping the horizon.
So that makes you happy. Okay,
Yeah,
just
yeah,
checking.
okay.
Thanks, Dan. Christie.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd just like to thank Rich for that beautiful invocation.
Yeah.
We've heard a lot of really nice invocations sitting up here, but really that one really touched my heart. Thank you, Richard.
Council. Hearing none, I've got a couple. I would like to appoint Ken Menzie to the Arts Commission.
Mayor, I'd like to make
too
a
late.
motion to appoint Duncan Mincy to the Arts Committee.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Questions, comments? He's kind of a theater guy, so it should be kind of give a little bit juice to that.
One of them.
Discussion. Roll call.
Wood,
Yes.
Evans. Yes. Miller. Aye. Gabriel. Gooten.
Yep.
English.
Yes.
Thank you. One more thing is tomorrow, McEwen Park got the fun dancing family music happening. So if you're out hanging around, I think it's 4 to 7. Might help to come down. It's free. We're trying something new, park guys. They got it all mowed. Looks nice out there. And then fire department on Sunday is doing the rain day. So if you've never been in the rain, come down. They're going to be. We're seeing it, but it's going out there. Mike working on it. All right, that's all I've got. You guys were good. Let's move on.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to approve the consent calendar as presented, including resolution number 25-035.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Discussion? Questions? Hearing none. Roll call, please.
Wood?
Yes.
Miller? Aye. Evan?
Yes.
Gabriel?
Yes.
Gookin?
Affirmative.
English?
Yes.
Other business, Resolution 25033, approve a new license with the Human Rights Education Institute, the building at 414 West Grounds Drive. Andy, take it away.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, council members. The question before council tonight, whether the city should enter into a new lease agreement with the Human Rights Education Institute for, as the mayor mentioned, the building at 414 West Fort Grounds Drive. The proposed lease starts at page 51 of your council packet. The city's history with this property is long and convoluted, going back more than 120 years. I'm sure you'll be happy to hear that I'm not going to cover all of that period of time. This building sits at lots 48 and 49 of the Fort Sherman Abandoned Military Resolution. This building right here that I'm indicating on the slide. For many years, it served as a substation for railroad station purposes. The Coeur d'Alene and Spokane Railway Company once used it to house large batteries to provide backup power sources for the electric train that ran between Spokane and Coeur d'Alene. The company later folded into the Great Northern Railroad Company and eventually became Burlington Northern. In 1904, the United States government donated 20 acres of Lot 48 to the city. The Act Congress stated, and I quote, "for the use of said municipality as a public park, and which shall be used for such purpose exclusively." That 20 acres became City Park, Memorial Field, currently some pickleball courts and park. This shows you the parts of lots 48 on the left and lot 49 on the right, and you can see how the building sits right on the boundary line between those lots. The city also obtained a land patent from the United States government in 1967 for parts of lot 49. The land patent provided that this land would revert to the United States government if it was devoted to a use other than for park and recreational purposes, and uses reasonably incident thereto. Now, the city can possibly use the property for other purposes, but it would have to go through the full process of obtaining the consent of the Secretary of the Interior, which, given the history of the property, could take years if it occurred at all. As Dave Yaden said in 1978, this property has been the subject of 5 acts of Congress, 5 executive orders, 2 rights-of-way grants, and 5 recreation and public purpose patents. To add to that list, at least 4 deeds, a bill of sale, 3 leases, and a sublease. The Bureau of Land Management manages the property. In 1966, the Bureau of Land Management approved a master plan submitted by the city for this area. In August 1975, BLM approved a revised master plan. So originally there were a lot of buildings, commercial buildings, located in this property, and under leases from Burlington Northern, including what was then known as the Senate building. In 1977, very significantly, the city contacted the BLM to ask if, under the land patents and the acts of Congress, this next building could be used as a museum, or could it be used for police or fire operations. At that time, the BLM said that a museum was appropriate. Use for police and fire operations would require a formal application for change of use to Secretary of the Interior. So in August of 1977, the city entered into an agreement with the Museum of North Idaho for Senex building. Over the next several years, the city continued negotiating with Burlington Northern to acquire this building. It was called the substation, or the powerhouse, or the sub-powerhouse, or simply the brick building. Burlington Northern finally deeded the building to the city, subject to existing restrictions, in 1989. The building was not initially habitable, so a sublease was entered into between the Museum of North Idaho and what was called the Coeur d'Alene Cultural Center, as the building was being restored. I'm not entirely sure why it was done this way. Council approved a lease with the city and museum and sublease on November 21st, 1989. The sublease had a term of 25 years. After the restoration work was complete, however, a new agreement was entered into between the city and the cultural center directly for a term of 50 years. The cultural center dissolved in 2002, and in July of 2003, the city entered into a lease with HREI for the operation of a human rights education center with office, meeting rooms, and exhibition areas. All of these were deemed permissible city use, similar to a museum. The initial term of that lease was 2 years, beginning December 1, 2003, and the lease agreement provided for a series of 5-year extensions through June 30th of 2030. The extensions, of course, were dependent on HREI complying with all the terms of the lease agreement. One of the terms of the original lease agreement was the payment of rent in the amount of $1,012 per month, beginning with the second year of the lease. However, the agreement also provided that HREI would be entitled to a credit against rents for improvements made to the building pursuant to a plan of renovation, which was to be provided annually. In October of 2017, an amendment to the lease agreement was approved by Council, recognizing that HREI made improvements to the building totaling $149,574.42, which entirely offset the rent due through December 10th of 2017. Since then, HREI has made no rental payments, but has continued to pay the utilities associated with the use of the building as required by the original lease. And on January 23rd, 2025, just this year, HREI submitted a payment to the city of $10,000 to reimburse for a roof repair. HREI has informed me of other improvements. You provided a document of a list of improvements through 2017. I don't have any documentation for any of those expenses, whether there was a plan of renovation that for those. Bear in mind that the improvements that be offset, capital improvements, some of the things on the list, not actually capital improvements. If HREI failed to make real payments or offsets to those payments by capital improvements, the city could declare default in the lease agreement, give HREI 3 days to cure, and terminate the lease on a failure to cure. Instead, the city began negotiations to enter into a new lease with HREI. These negotiations began at least in 2018. Several proposed new leases were submitted to HREI. There was give and take between the two, but nothing came to a final agreement. The city had numerous discussions with HREI about the delinquency and the need for a new lease. Alternate uses for the building were discussed and considered. Eventually, in June of this year, HREI and city staff agreed to the terms of a new lease, subject, of course, to approval of council. HREI is an Idaho nonprofit corporation in good standing, having been incorporated in 1998. It relies on donations and grants to fund its operations. HREI has made extensive improvements to this building over several years, often through grants, and HREI has provided service to the community. As I indicated, there are limitations on the uses which this building can be put under the Act of Congress, 1904, and the Land Patent of 1967. And for these reasons, the successive city administrations thought it reasonable to allow HREI to continue to occupy the building it had for the prior 20 years while the city attempted to reach an agreement that would both benefit the city and allow HREI to continue its operations in building which has, again, significant use restrictions. The proposed lease that's before you is for an initial 3-year term, which would take us through September 30th of 2028. There's one automatic renewal for additional 3 years. For the first 12 months, HREI would be utilities, sewer, gas, water, electric, cable, telephone, etc. as rent. For the remaining 2 years of the initial term, HREI will also pay $500 per month. And during any renewal term, the rent will be $1,000 per month plus utilities. Unlike the original lease, the new lease can be terminated by the city if council decides not to appropriate funds in a fiscal year to pay for the services required of the city, which includes general repair and maintenance of the exterior of the building grounds, including the parking lots. This is called a non-appropriations clause and is required by Idaho law. In addition, the lease can be terminated by the city, of course, if the city decides it needs to perform some significant construction on the building and it can't be occupied. HREA will continue to have the right to make capital improvements to offset rent payments, but the proposed lease requires written consent by the city and that any improvement represent a capital improvement to the building. HREI may, as it did the original lease, use the building for the purpose of operating a human rights education center, including office space, meetings, classrooms, exhibitions, and other similar uses, as would generally advance the purpose of HREI. The new lease specifically prohibits partisan political activities HREI on premises. So council must decide whether to approve the new lease with the Human Rights Education Institute for the building at 14 West Fork Ground Drive, which it has occupied for almost 2 years. And staff would stand for questions if council has any.
Council, questions?
Sure.
Steve?
Well, thank you, Randy. That was a very in-depth presentation. And Annette, thank you for your earlier comments. I think there's no question of the impact of this institution and the support for mission of this institution. All of council has supported that for over 2 decades. What we have tonight before us is also a business decision. So without offending anyone's sensibilities, we kind of want to peel through some of the business part of it, because when we make our decision, we need to justify it and defend it. So, Randy, the last lease expired in 2017. And at that time, the monthly rent was being taken off the improvements building. There was a set amount, quite a large amount over that time. But I believe that you said that monthly was $1,012. So all years later, though, that's cut in half. You could explain, or Troy could maybe talk about that. I mean, we need to be able to speak to what is market and how did we come to that decision.
Well, in terms of the amount of the proposed lease, that was just negotiation between us and HREI, them telling us what it is they can afford based on the fact that their income is donation grants. Grants are being restricted currently, and that was just the number that we thought was appropriate for. It's certainly not market value. It is appropriate for their ability, considering the restriction on the use of the building.
Okay. In the agreement, I don't see any language to pay back for the last 7.5 years. Understand, you're explaining to me their limited ability to raise funds, and I think that's true. And I think the director tries very hard to raise funds. Again, just looking at it as a business decision, there isn't any language at all for the last 7.5 years. Talk about that.
Let me just correct one thing. The lease is not expired. The original lease would go through 2030 unless the city declared a default, which we have not. So the lease is ongoing, but because of the perceived default, the lack of rental payments, the lack of proof of capital improvements, that gives the city the opportunity to say, okay, we need a new lease. The old lease, we could declare default and terminate, but let's just try to get a new lease. So this is a new start is what we're talking about. So, I mean, it's certainly up to council what the council wants to receive for this property in terms of a lease. But it was considered, let's get this thing started again with a payment plan that they could likely follow. The alternative, we would have any building, the city would pay utilities, and we probably could not be anybody else in that building.
Okay, that's my next question, if I may, Mr. Mayor. One more. And it'd be to Troy. Troy, and maybe Randy, maybe you as well, because I believe by statute, we are supposed to at least examine our facilities for our own use before we're allowed to lease them.
That's the implication of statute, which says that if we can lease property that is not of current use to the city.
Okay. And, well, I'll just follow up later. Thank you.
Kenny?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Do we have a long list of people that are wanting to get in this building, other 501c3s?
I have not heard anyone approach the city. Roy might know.
And, I mean, it's a wonderful, desirable spot, for sure, but the cost to us if we didn't do something could be big, couldn't it?
It would be, we'd have to maintain it, which would require us to pay certain utilities to keep it functioning so it doesn't degrade any further. It is a old building which requires a lot of maintenance. I think there's no concern about a wall that's maybe falling down.
Let me add, we have worked on that and remedied that situation thanks to your Cracker Jack staff and working with our own engineering department and our building department to rectify that wall that is closest to the park.
I had a couple more questions, but they let me, so thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Mr. English?
Sure. Just to clarify, as far as the permitted uses, according to their name and whether, but education, related training kind of activities, obviously, so that's an acceptable use. But as a pure, fire, police, substation, another house or something, which we've talked about down, that wouldn't be, I understand, just as pure police substation training activities are, yeah.
According to the BLM and the Act of Congress land patent, yes, you're correct. It would have to be it would be an act of Congress to allow us to do that.
Well, except not if it's a training thing, right?
Well, that wasn't discussed with the BLM.
Okay.
The Act of Congress talked about it being used as a public park and for recreation and related or incidental use. The BLM determined that use as a museum, education, civic, was permissible, but not as an operational base for police or fire. I don't think training was raised with the BLM.
Kiki?
Okay, so follow up on that, then there wouldn't really, I'm going to think of any other of our city uses that we use it for. Could you store mowers in there? I don't think that's a public use. So there doesn't seem to be anything that you could really put in there that the city could use for. Just grappling with that. Quick question, what in the prior lease, any of the improvement had to be specifically identified as capital improvements?
The requirement of the lease was that any improvements had to be made pursuant to what was called a plan of renovation in each year, which is something that HREI would submit to the city for approval.
And so that didn't happen? Or
I have not seen a plan of renovation from HREI.
Right?
We weren't receiving what I would call a plan of renovation. We probably heard some of the improvements that were being made. They also had a change in staff, and some records were not as easily accessible where they were looking to document what they had spent to call it capital. So that was another faux pas that occurred during that period of time.
So it may have existed, but it may have been vague. Is fair?
It may have been listed and it
May have existed, but it may have been a vague plan of renovation.
that would be a good way to quote it.
Okay. So then, I want to get my head around the numbers, I think, because Christie said there's been no rent paid since 2017. In here, we have the big number of just shy of 150,000, that apparently there was good documentation on that, and that was all credited to that period. And then we have this new document that has $60,000
Through 2017, yes.
But was that through? Because so that's 2006, 2017. So what we don't know, was this included in the 150?
No, well, the 150 was approved in 2007, but the calculation would have taken it through 2017. So none of those expenses, I think on that sheet, there may have been or two incurred before council approved that 140,000 in improvements.
Okay, what I'm trying to get to is, maybe I'm trying to make it too easy, but we have this real space of time that we approved, giving them credit for improvements in the shy of 150. Looks like what they're saying is we have another 60,000 that we should be getting credited towards back pay rent. Then you said they submit $10,000 bill. Payment. But that's not in this 60,000, so that would be 70,000, which would be part of the shy of part. I guess what I'm trying to say is that what you're expected to get head around here, that the 150 was accounted for, got them to 2017, the 2017 to now has some other numbers that they're trying to say would be credited towards our rent that we pay.
Well, I don't think it'll ever all come out even, which is why I said,
Right.
which is why we took a position that we just need to start over, start fresh. Well, maybe the ball was dropped before by us not requiring strict compliance to lease. Some of those payments on that list are not really cap improvements.
Yeah.
So that hasn't really been looked at by the city staff to determine if that's entitled to all or a portion of the credits for that. Again, I've seen documentation for any of that other than that sheet.
I guess what I'm trying to say, the smart thing is to start fresh, and then both sides be more legit with what's happening, move forward, and there's been good negotiations to that. I just was trying to get my head around if whether there was less of a loss than what we were thinking, because there was possibly more improvements done to
Well,
the
that's
building.
the HREI's position, and that's why they presented that document to you, and council can certainly consider that for what it's worth.
Mr. Dukin.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Randy, earlier you mentioned you were talking about using the building as a police substation, and you said that would take an act of Congress or odd or
Approved by
something.
the Secretary of Interior at least,
Okay,
whoever that is.
that's one guy or person. But I'm curious because we have a public safety building in the same area. So did it take a request from the Secretary of Interior to put up that public safety building?
You mean the Coot County?
Nope. I mean, just south of the REI, there's a little,
He used to call it Boopsie Bunker.
was
Sam.
Boosie's Bunker. Thank you. And it's called public safety. It's a little concrete building, and it's sitting on the same property, and it's used, it says Court and Police and Fire Department on it, and I'm curious why we got an excuse from the Secretary of Interior for that.
I've not seen any permission, I've not seen any complaint from the BLM that was not a permitted use. I do know, in going through a notebook full of the history of this building, that BLM did complain about Burlington Northern's leasing several buildings on this property for commercial purposes. And so they did approach Burlington Northern about those buildings. Those buildings have destroyed. Apparently didn't care about this little building.
Okay, well, let's pretend they don't care. This is, I remember a few years ago when we had Mayor Widmeyer, that he went on a crusade against property that was owned by the city and leased. And we unloaded a lot of property through the city because, as I don't know if he said it, but I said it, we should not be a landlord. One of the problems with being a landlord is that all of a sudden we get to become jerks. We have to evict someone. And therefore it becomes political. It further becomes political because this is a nonprofit. And I'm always uncomfortable with a relationship like this with a nonprofit because it, again, allows us to be judged by nonprofit instead of the fiscal responsibility we have to the taxpayer to ensure that we are being fiduciaries. I realize that we do HUD grants to nonprofits, and that's fine, competitive, it's by law. But in case, it becomes a sense issue because we're not being judged by an entity paying rent for 7 years or however long it's been, but by what the entity does. And that makes it more difficult. But yet, fiduciarily, we have a responsibility to the taxpayer to make sure that we are going to be landlords, which I wish we weren't, that we collect rent. And this is something that happens in the private sector too, and people do get evicted. I remember there was an apartment complex that was shut down up on Ironwood, and we got complaints. I don't know if you all got complaints. Yeah, Dan English remembers getting that. We got complaints. What can the city do about this? Well, and there were hard luck stories. People who were on Medicaid and didn't have a job, they were sick, and they got kicked to their place to live in the middle of winter. And that's just market, and that's why I believe there was wisdom in saying we should not be landlords, so we don't put ourselves in this situation. That's all the side. And all that, though, I think there is an advantage to having something in there, and they're in there. And maintaining the building, having a presence, means that we're not paying the utilities, but I do believe we need to set it as a goal to find a purpose for that building and to find a tenant who pays the rent. And I believe in giving HREI a year to make sure that happens. And after a year, we can look at, like the statute says, we can look at another purpose for the building, or something else, or find a tenant. I think it'd be fair, and I would just throw that out to you, what council would think about that.
Mr. English.
Well, backing up a little, and I think some of what Key was talking about, and I'm all good that we start fresh, start at zero, and then we've got to, like Dan, we have a number of things we have to balance, and of course the city, of course we support the mission and the fact that they've been there 2 years. I think we've, shown that we're all part of different things that support that, and some of their subsidiary organizations. And I do like that, but it's probably time to evaluate one thing, though. This whole thing about the credit for capital improvements and that, when I look at the stuff that got approved, I don't see it as so much, well, that was a plan that we needed to do, and which I'm glad now, whatever we do, it sounds like we got to buy off on it, but I see it as more like, well, it's that, man, it's, we can't drive in the summer, you got to area, you can't have the roof leaking. I mean, stuff that was kind of, mission critical, maybe even safety kind of stuff. So it's not a plan. I mean, that's just like keeping the basics. So whatever we're going forward, I think we have to be very intentional about that kind of a plan. And I do kind of like the idea of taking a year to evaluate as cities. So, I mean, nothing's happened. Also, knowing that there are so many organizations that support mission and everything, and I've been part of the nonprofit world for a long time, and I'm guessing there's a whole lot of folks that, if they heard and they're going to be out there, might step up with some space or something. So, who knows what opportunities are out there? But I like the idea of we need to take a look at this. So,
Mr. Mayor, sorry.
Amy.
First, I want to thank HREI and Jeanette for all the work you do community. We're very thankful you're here. I want to piggyback a little bit on Kiki's questions about the improvements, renovations, capital expenses. And we have a list that was provided to us in 2006 through 2017 that we've referenced sometimes, plus the pin of $10,000 for the roof. What I'm not seeing is anything from 2018 present day. We know with building that you've had expenses. Do you have that, or has the city received? Because I feel like it's being underrepresented of the amount of improvements that HREI must have put into this building for the last few years.
This manager and I met on May 5th of 2023 and discussed surveillance that put on the building, day of carrying expenditures for the last couple of years. But that I have been at a summer camp working this week, and so I came into town from across the lake, 45 minutes, just to be here tonight, visiting last night because I saw the agenda packet. And so I did not have time to pull any QuickBooks reports, and I'm happy to provide that for all of that documentation. The surveillance itself is $1,000. The day carrying, average a couple thousand per year over that period of time. We have $1,600 electrical bill is for lighting on the outside, some safety stuff, and that's just off the top of my head.
Thank you.
So, and the roof itself. The roof itself was a lot more. When we first put in for the grant, the roof cost bid was at $19,000. By the time the work was done, it was at 65 plus, right? Am I correct? I can't remember. It was upwards of 65,000. So the grant that was supported at time, because the time period between when the grant was written, the cost of labor and construction went that much over that period of time. It was through COVID, and it wasn't able to be until afterward. And so had we written the grant at that time, we would have had a different outlay of grant capital that could have provided to the city. But we were working off of a previously written grant, and we actually asked for an additional amount, and that's what we got from that, the Idaho Heritage Trust.
Thank you. I just don't want it to be just that you did have additional expenses.
Yes,
that
the
we've seen.
expenses that you're looking at here are the capital expenses that were for my time. I was not the executive director. Annalise Miller was the board chair. Lee Burns was on the board at that time, and Joanne Harvey, and all three of them submitted 2017 report. And so my interaction with the city manager was to reestablish that report as part of the basis for that period of time, which should put us in 5 to 6 years of rental payment.
Thank you.
Vicky.
Mr. Mayor, I think a couple things here. I think Dan, both Dans had some really good input on a direction here. I think I'd like, if I can maybe summarize, I think council is feeling like a highest best use to this building is something that needs to take a look at. And maybe we aren't doing that right now. Maybe there's something else that we're missing. I kind of hear that that's council really has a desire for staff to do. And that, I'd like to make a motion that we approve the lease as it is right now for the 3-year term under the financial plan and details that are in there, and then add a direction to staff that they take a look at the highest and best use potential tenant prior to entering into any renegotiations of the lease before it expires in its 3-year term.
I'll second.
Mr. Mayor, can I offer an amendment?
Sure.
I was thinking exactly like you, with one caveat. I'd like us to do exactly that. They need some stability, they need to know they have a home. And so, but what I would like to say is within the next 12 months, before then, but deadline 12 months, that we've taken a hard look at the best use of this facility, and then we come back here in a year and we can all discuss it, and if there's no other use for it, the other 2 years just keep going.
If kind of in discussion mode, if you don't mind. I think about that, but I also know that it's a short period of time for one large entity to move out and re-establish their programming and to find another entity to get out of their own lease and move in. So I think that if staff is doing the work that we all want by putting out that it may be available when this lease expires, it will give any of our potential future tenant the ability to take a look at what, because they aren't probably month-to-month leases, they're probably on 2 to 5 leases. It gives them a chance to look at, hey, if we're looking at a move and we could be a tenant in the building, we have some time to not renew our lease. So that 3-year window from a business perspective gives a new potential tenant a period of time to look at their business model, as well as HRI to say, here's where we can perform, and or if we need to move, we have the ability to structure ourselves up to successfully do that.
So I heard everything you said, I just see it a little bit differently, but I'm going to let, these two are trying to speak.
Mr. Cook?
Thank you. And again, this is why the city should not be a landlord. Because right now, we're negotiating agreements, contracts, and this is BS. This is beyond the scope of what local government should do. We should not be landlords. If you want to solve this problem, yes, we could go with lease, but just kicking the can down the road. So that's why I said 1 year. I said 1 year I think is fair because it gives them time to do anything else, gives us time to look at what else we could do with this building. By statute, to make sure that we have, it's not needed for any city purpose, and have paid rent. And I'm willing to let them slide on that for another year, and then find somewhere else to go. We should not be landlords. It's not our.
Okay. Well, and I know I'm kind of a split the baby kind of guy. So instead of 12 months or 36, I would like to propose we look at 18, would be through the end of the year 2026. So it's a nice round number, gives a little more time, but also I think there is a certain, I don't know, urgency isn't the right word, but I do think that it's only fair to everybody that we come to something, and it's not going to take forever for us to decide if we've got to use. And actually, I've been in the nonprofit world, and like it, moved CASA, which had a whole bunch of stuff and everything, and like we had about a 60-day notice, whoa, we got it, and so it be done, and there's a lot of community support. So, that would be my counter is look at 18, so, and we're negotiating.
Let me go back to this people who have.
I'm sure you are in the landlord's just right now, aren't we? And I'm curious at what the hurry would be to get them it almost sounds like we want them to get out of lease. And if they become good leasees, is that appropriate? Are we happy with that? Or are we looking specific at the Plan B, which could be something else? I'm just asking because I've not been part of any of these discussions, and I'm with you. I would love to not be in the landlord's business. Unfortunately, today they are. So I very much, the 3-year I'm fine with, but I think it's very appropriate for us to look at it sooner, though. I think should look at it if it's sooner than.
You got anything on this?
Nothing additional. No.
Okay. So we came to no conclusion here. Christie.
I still had a comment. Thank you. Well, and all of us support the mission, the good work. That's not the question. It's all about do we need the facility for ourselves. And so how do we help them carry forward with their mission for as long as possible until maybe, I think down the road we will get it for purposes, until they're able to secure a facility, but also take care of our own needs, which we're supposed to focus on as a city. So talk about what could go in there. I have advocated for public safety. Brand says the police department can go there, but an educational wing of the police department can go there and would happily go there. The crime prevention programs could be ran out of there. Maybe that could be with them. That hasn't discussed. There's the volunteer program that can be ran out of there because those are educational. And so I think it is really important that we take a look of what our needs are. And we address those. As you know, police department is space. They increased their locker size and that's it. So I'm fine with splitting the difference of 18 months because I sincerely want them to succeed. I do. But if we need that facility, we should be talking about that. So I'd suggest that we come back in 18 months. We have the real discussion. And if we don't need the space, then we're done talking about it and their lease just carries on.
So do we formally amend the 1-year motion? Or?
I think
so we have a motion on the floor for the 3 years.
Oh, that's what.
That's where we started all this.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I think you're right, Christie. This is great discussion because don't police already have a relationship with movies in the park or is that through the park?
Mm-hmm.
So
we do. Yeah.
Is that HREI?
For me to come to the microphone.
Please.
Yeah.
Is that with REI or is that with the?
So the police department does move in the park, and they allow us to come and do the pre-movie activities, and so we support the police department in that effort.
But thank you, I appreciate that. I guess what I'm saying is we're getting the information out to staff to say we want this building looked at, and a lot of these ideas, there may be more. Dan, I'm sorry, we're in the landlord business, but apparently we have been dealing with this building for 100 years, so it looks like another 3 are probably not going to kill us, but I think we have some good time to take a hard look at what highest and best use that building will be and not rush through to get something done, get a tenant out who maybe is the right tenant to be there. Maybe we add some space to it. Maybe we talk with that tenant, say we want some police education in here. We want some fire education in here. We want to maybe in 18 months, say we want to negotiate some amendments to the lease to add some space. Or maybe it doesn't even need to be an amendment to the lease. It can just be a partnership that allows us some good contributes. So where I'm at with it, I think I'm glad it's cleaned up. Thank you for all the negotiations on that. I'm glad that you have a fresh start. I think there's no sense in going backwards through the mud to get all these dollars, but I think it's closer than what we thought as far as unpaid rent went, and I feel better about that. So that's I'm with my motion still. We renew as is, and I think staff got a lot of direction from the conversations that happen.
May I
Ms. Gookin.
So I'm going to say, Ed said to me that we are landlords. I'm going to put on my landlord hat. If someone hasn't paid rent for 7 years, I'm not renewing a lease. That's the way landlords work. There is not a single human being in this city who rents property who would release for someone who has not paid the rent. And I'm offering a year, so I'm being a bad landlord. But only government is that stupid.
I think it's debatable whether they've paid the and we've established that.
Are we done?
Oh, no, it'll
Oh,
pass.
keep
so
going.
go ahead.
No, there's a motion, but
It's a
then.
motion. Let's just work through this and see where it goes.
Yeah.
Good.
Passes or fails or type.
So Kelly, you with all of us? Hang in there. Hang in there. All right, so the motion is asking for the 3 years, correct? So we'll do
Mr. Mayor, I think technically, Councilmember Wood offered an alternative or amendment to the motion. There was no second to that, so we should declare that one dead or wait for a second before we move on to the primary motion.
I think it's dead.
Gonna kill it.
Well, if I can, I would make an alternative motion for 18 months.
This is like the ACRCC.
Second.
Is this the way they do it? Yeah. Oh, wow. Well, Dan, I don't really want to recognize you right now. Go ahead, jump in.
Well, I just did.
Oh,
And I
you,
second.
and he seconded. Okay, so we're going to start with them and work backwards. And you're at
Start with the
18,
amendment.
18 months, yes?
Well,
Yep, through the end of calendar 26.
Here we go.
if I heard right, it was 18 months and then the assessment. And the assessment is that we don't have a use for it, then the 3 years plays out. Is that right?
Well, at the end of that, we do that, so, yeah, it's pretty much ready to go.
Can you do, I'm sorry, Mr., can you do that legally, say that we're taking a 3-year lease, but we're making it 18 months somehow, but
You know what, I'm gonna withdraw it. Let's vote or down on your 3-year.
It'll take more time.
Hang in there, Kelly, hang in there.
I withdraw.
Randy,
It looks like we're back to the original motion.
okay, you guys good with that?
Yep.
Let's go through that. So the original motion is to either use, lease the Human Rights Institute for the building at 401 for 3 years. And during that
I think
time,
motion was to approve the lease as presented.
Yeah.
as presented, and have staff look for alternative use over those 3 years.
Yep.
Okay. Roll call?
Miller,
Aye.
Evans, Gabriel,
Yes.
Gookin,
No.
English,
No,
Wood,
No.
Mayor McEvers.
What?
Hang on. I may ask a legal question.
Excuse, I have to vote. Yes.
I must ask a legal question of our attorney. According to Idaho Code 50-1409, a lease must be approved by a vote of 1/2 plus 1 members of the full council. I don't believe Mayor can break a tie.
we get education out of the Education Institute,
real time.
real time.
I believe that 1409 is talking about portions of public playgrounds, grounds from time to time for various uses, exhibits, ballparks, etc. I think you should be looking at 50-1407.
Okay, so this is, 1409 is leases, conveyance of property. The mayor and council may, by resolution, authorize the issue of any property not needed for city purpose. Upon such terms as may be just and equitable, the provisions of sections 1401 through 1409 shall apply on the vacation or discontinuance of streets, hallways, avenues, blah, 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 vacated, providing that the council of a city, upon a vote of 1/2 to 1 of the members of the council, set aside portions of public parks, playgrounds, etc.
To be used from time to time.
Is that what we're doing here? Portion of a public park?
Or athletic contests, golf, agricultural exhibits, ballparks, fairs, rodeos, swimming pools, and other amusements. 50-1407 also deals with leases.
Okay, what does that say, if you could, please?
Very simple. One line. The mayor and council may by resolution authorize the lease of any real or personal property not otherwise needed for city purposes upon such terms as the city council determines may be just and equitable.
Okay, thank you for that clarification, I appreciate it.
So it looks like it passed.
It passed.
Thank you. Randy, can you do something else now, since we moved past that one? Consent to a sublease with University of Idaho for a portion of Harbor Center facility to the Coeur d'Alene Tribe. Thank you, Randy.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and Council. The University of Idaho has been leasing Harbor Center from the city pursuant to terms of a master lease dated May 13, 2002. That master lease has been amended 3 times, basically to extend the length of the lease. The third amendment, which was effective July 1st, 2013, extended the lease through June 30th of 2028. The university has asked and I also have to mention that the rental payments for this have been paid at the rate of $10 per year ever since 2002. The university has asked the city for its consent to lease the first floor, the south wing of Harbor Center, which had been leased by Lewis Clark State College. We vacated that portion of the building on June 30th of this year. The university would like to sublease that portion to Coeur d'Alene Tribe. Tribe will utilize the space to house tribal government services to make access more convenient. Tribal staff in the Natural Resources Department is already heavily involved in education and outreach, research, and community support. The term of the sublease, if approved, would be August 1st, 2025 to June 30th, 2028, when the current university lease ends. The master lease, which the provision which never changed by the amendments, that says the tenant may not assign this lease or sublet any part of the premises without the landlord's approval, which approval should not be withheld unreasonably. The city, as the landlord, has consent to this sublease, and that is what's before council tonight. There is no financial impact to the city. The city's had a good working relationship with both the tribe and the university for many years. The city has, I've been told, no use for the space currently that was vacated by LCSC, and therefore the city lease would not interfere with functions and would, in fact, demonstrate goodwill the city has toward the tribe and the university. I would stand for any questions.
Council?
Sure, I'll fire one.
Oh, you sure?
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
Oh, Dan?
Randy, you're an attorney. You don't have to apologize. But you said that basically this is being presented to us, and if I understood you correctly, we don't really have a choice. It's kind of, we're just saying, okey doke.
You cannot reject a sublease unreasonably.
Unreasonably, okay.
So if you have a reason, a cogent, intelligent, pertinent reason,
Okay.
yeah, you have the power to reject a sublease.
So that's the backstop, basically. So,
Yes,
okay.
it is.
I was just wondering, because the language here is it consents to a sublease, to not just acknowledge the sublease.
Correct. We have to consent
Okay, thank you.
as a city.
Christie?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Well, first of all, just like HREI, the U of I is an incredible educational facility that is in our community, and we're very fortunate. I am a little sad that LCSC has vacated. Vision of the education corridor was NIC, LCSC, and UI, so that a student could go from start to finish seamlessly. Now, the good news is LCSC is on the NIC campus, so there's still some consistency there. Speaking of consistency, I think it's only fair to ask the same thing, that there's some sort of investment. We haven't looked at this building in a long time. I want U of I to stay there. I'm not suggesting anything. I just think to be consistent, we should also do the same look, deep dive on whether the city needs the space. Not now, but come back to us in a year and let us know. Or I'd say, why don't I just say by 2028, so that we don't have to do this whole thing again. Whatever the term is, come back to us and let us know if the city needs the space.
There is a difference between the two leases, the original HREI lease and the University of Idaho lease. The University of Idaho lease contemplated that negotiations would occur between the city and the university for the university to actually purchase the building. Those negotiations, as I understand, have been ongoing for 23 years, and I think are still going on. So it's not quite the same issue in terms of do we have need for it or not. There is an agreement that talks about the sale of the building.
Oh, be a little more detail on that?
Does Troy have any information?
Yeah, clarify it.
We never have any opportunity to do anything but lease this building?
Well, it currently ends in 2028.
Oh, okay.
After that, it's either renegotiate a lease or on.
Mayor? Oh,
Dan.
to clarify, are you saying they are interested in buying it?
Well, I don't
You
want
were-
words in their mouth. I know that
oh.
there have been discussions.
Why? I'd like to, I mean, I wouldn't want to wait 3 years if they're potential. They could still do all of our other partnerships, we balance a budget and.
I don't think that's on the agenda right now.
I don't think we force them to buy it.
What do you, Julie, can we force you?
No pressure,
the
Julie,
cushions,
no
the couch.
pressure. All right, so with that, they're coming back.
Coming back. Okay, so I just wanted to say this, when this renewed at I was council, it's for $10 a year. Landlords, we're killing it. And I oppose that, but I assume that they're subletting it to the tri-bet market rate.
I have no
We
insider
have no
knowledge
idea.
of that.
Okay.
Not our
It's
business.
not our purview.
Amy?
Mr. Mayor, I'll make a motion to approve resolution number 25-036, consenting to a sublease by the University of Idaho for a portion of the Harbor Center facility to the Coeur tribe.
Been moved and seconded. Discussion. Hearing none. Roll call, please.
Gabriel?
Yes.
Gookin?
Okay.
English?
Yes.
Wood?
Yes.
Miller?
Aye.
Thank you,
Evans?
guys.
Yes.
Thank you. All right, highlight of the evening.
They wanted, got the bums rush, they wanted to have a small.
Renata, welcome.
Thank you.
So,
All right. I am here before you to talk about amendments to Municipal Code, Chapter 5.8, also known as the Massage Facility and Spa Code. The code was actually first enacted in 1961, so it has been around for a while, something that the city has been interested in keeping a pulse on and making sure that are appropriately run, and amended this the last time in 2013. So we have added in the purpose and intent of this code. As you know, in the past, it's been about working with some of the massage facility owners. In 2013, the state took away the right of the city to regulate individual therapists, and they're doing that at a state level. So all we can do is regulate the massage facility owners, our level of government. So we've been doing that. We've added in a little bit of a purpose statement to really understand that there are some list massages that are practiced in our community, but we want to protect those businesses that are legitimate. So we believe the code that we brought forward is a good balance of those things, and we are here to talk about that this evening. So currently, in the City of Coeur d'Alene, we have 31 licensed facilities. We have an unknown number of licensed therapists. The state of Idaho licensed them based on their mailing address, and they don't track where they work after they become licensed. So the state can tell us that we have 1,995 current licensed therapists in the state of Idaho with 10 provisional licenses, but not exactly where they're working. We have been working with the stakeholders. We've emailed the licensed facilities in October 2024 and April of 2025, and most recently, July 10th of this month, to let them know working on this code and provided them what those code changes are. So as you may have heard in the news, there has been a lot of attention on illicit facilities throughout the state of Idaho. There have been other cities, including our own, where we've encountered this. Twin Falls, Lewiston, Eagle, Idaho, and Spokane, Washington, all in the last year experienced that. Out the United States, there was a national effort in May of this year where they kind of did a sting across 18 different states and found some human trafficking networks that are occurring throughout the country. So this is something that they're struggling with throughout the entire United States, not just in Idaho. But there are legitimate massage facilities. There's lots of ways to become licensed and certified. There's national certifications. There's the Idaho Division of Occupational and Professional Licenses, actually, is the one who regulates our Idaho therapists. The code amendments are pretty detailed, but I'm just going to hit some of the highlights. We've added in a purpose statement. We've done housekeeping items that were leftovers, or we talked to individual therapists. We needed to clean up that language. And then we've added in what I'm referring to as code enforcement tools, but it's enforcing our codes. It's really law enforcement tools, public safety tools. We've added in some inspection opportunities. We have added in a few things regarding English language. What we've countered is we have some of the illicit parlors that are operating and there's no one on site who can speak English, and we have had some problems with the interpretation services. We require records, but we didn't require those records to be done in English. We had a very hard time understanding Mandarin. So we've added some of those things in. We've included the requirement of a floor plan. That's in some of those illicit massage parlors. They've started adding in bedroom facilities. That doesn't our building code, fire code, or our planning code. So this just gives another opportunity to see how they're planning those spaces. And then we have referenced what we call residential arrangement. Be noted. There is a slight chance that if you a home occupation, we had one building on Government Way where half was a residential home and the other half was the business. So are those opportunities where you could have a residential use involved in this type of activity? So that would be something where we're to be noted in a license application now. Some of the other things that we did were the appeal clarification. Some of our old language said they could have stay during the appeal period when they continue to operate. So we added in some language that it doesn't apply when you denied a license. So if you already had a license and you were denied, you don't get to open up just because you appeal denial. The other opportunity we added in was that the appeal does not view a stay unless it's requested and determined there's no harm to the public and you continuing to operate. So maybe the paperwork issue, but any of these ones that are doing the illicit sexual activities would not get continue to operate just because they appealed. So our recommendation tonight really is to consider what you've been presented and approve the amendment to Municipal Code Chapter 528. And I stand for questions.
Mr. Gunn.
Thank you. Ronald, I apologize I didn't get this to you sooner because I just noticed it.
Sure.
In the very last section, 528, 180, alcoholic beverages and drugs prohibited. In section A, it is unlawful to consume alcoholic beverage or liquor, possess an open containing alcoholic beverage or liquor on the premise of any massage facility or spa. Would this include the Coeur d'Alene Resorts Spa?
Yes. If you go to section B, it says that it shall apply to premises that are duly licensed by the state of Iowa Liquor Control Board.
Perfect.
So if they are a licensed facility, a beer and wine or alcohol license, then that would not apply.
Outstanding. Thank
And
you.
I should probably clarify, we have been working with other staff on this and very closely with police and have worked in tools that they've requested. There's representation here tonight if you have specific questions for law enforcement.
Christie.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Renata, I know the concern of the previous massage parlors was sex trafficking, and really, police really believe that's what was happening, and council had reason to believe that, so denied some licenses. I'm curious about the home occupation or the bedrooms. So we know that in the basement of some of these facilities, there were beds, women stacked everywhere. Saying this will eliminate, like if law enforcement comes across that, they have reason to immediately take action.
Yes. If it's not in the original approved license packet.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is there, and it would only approved if it were a home occupation like you said.
Yes.
I see Cap Walters here. I don't want to make him come all the way up. I would just ask briefly, is the police department reviewed all this and are they in favor? Thank you. Thank you.
Kiki.
Kenny, did you have your hand up?
Did not.
Thank you. Renata, my question, I think, was follow to Dan's question. The other facilities brought in, the reason is I see advertisements all the time with spas all over town with your mimosa, free mimosa with your pedicure. And so I looked at that and they're probably not alcohol licensed facilities. So can you tell me all of these holders were involved in this conversation?
Yes. As I noted on this section here, we've notified them 3 times. Anybody who was a licensed facility received the email with the draft of the code each time we amended the draft code, so they've been apprised of the situation. And there are some that do have beer and wine licenses, which are much easier to get than the actual liquor licenses. So there are several spas that are licensed for beer and wine. And there are some, maybe the nail salons or things like that, that ISP's been in discussions with, say, if you aren't already legal, you need to become legal and go get beer and wine licenses. So they're aware and they're monitoring it, and we would encourage them to seek out a wine license if they want mimosas.
Even if they're not selling it, it's the same thing, it's on premise. So, and you're confident that they've all been informed?
They have all been informed of this code. I do not know to the extent ISP talking to them about their current activities.
But this code will affect, they'll be in violation with the
which they already likely were, or could be.
Okay.
Under ISPs.
Okay.
No other questions? For a motion, please.
Mr. Mayor, make a motion to dispense a rule and read Council Bill number 25-1013 once by title only.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Discussion. Oh, I love the quiet. Roll call, please.
Gookin?
Of course.
English?
Yes.
Wood?
Yes.
Miller?
Aye.
Evans?
Yes.
Gabriel?
Read the title, please.
Council Bill number 25-1013, an ordinance of the City of Coeur d'Alene, Kootenai County, Idaho, amending Coeur d'Alene Municipal Code, Chapter 5.28, entitled Massage Facilities and Spas, repealing all ordinances and parts of ordinances in conflict herewith, providing a severability clause, providing for the publication of a summary, this ordinance, and effective date hereof.
Mr. Mayor, I'll make a motion to adopt Council Bill number 25-1013.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Discussion. Hearing none. Roll call, please.
Gookin?
Yes.
English?
Yes.
Wood?
Yes.
Miller?
Aye.
Evans?
Yes.
Gabriel?
Yes.
Thank you all. Our next is we're having a public hearing, so hopefully if you're interested in speaking to this, you've been on a sign-up list. Nobody on this list. Well, that makes it a little easier for us. So Renata, you're going to carry this one too.
Yes, I'm going to bring us home tonight. Okay, so I am here before you for a fee increase public hearings required by Idaho Code. Anytime we increase a fee by more than 5% or 5% and more, we would have to have a public hearing, and it must be approved by a resolution of the City Council. So we do have, we take a look at this annually. The last time we brought one forward was May of 2024, so it was time to bring another one forward. I checked with all the departments, and we have fee requests from building, finance, fire, library, municipal services, parks and recreation, police, and water departments. The notice of public hearing was published, and the fees have been on our website since June 26th for public consumption. So I'm just going to do the highlights. There are a lot of fees, a lot of that very similarly increased because of staffing costs. I'll run through a few highlights for you and the public at large. And we have staff here from representing each department. If you have specific questions, we can certainly call them up at the conclusion of the presentation. You can ask your specific questions to them. So building department has increased several of their fees that have to do with hourly wages to increase that reflects current wages, benefits, and overtime rates, anywhere from $70 to $90 out there structure. There were several clarifications needed to be made to mechanical fees, and permits, demolition permits, and the associated stormwater and plumbing fees. So it just wasn't clear, so we clarified that. So sometimes, even though it's not a 5% increase, we include in this resolution so that we have an accurate documentation of why when things were changed throughout time. Increased fees for manufactured home settings, and wanted to also clarify it included deck or landing to 20 square feet. And we have what is called change of occupancy that occurs. So business comes in and changes the type of use that was previously. It takes a lot of staff time and involves several departments. So we have amended that fee and created, covered those additional costs. And we've created a new category for temporary certificate of occupancy. So when maybe construction isn't quite finished and ready, maybe the landscaping isn't done, or some small non-life safety issue, they come in and request a temporary certificate, require additional inspections. So they've created a fee that includes those costs as well. And they wanted to know they did check in with Post Falls and Hayden, and their fees are very similar to ours, and so we are very comparable to neighboring jurisdictions. The finance department has requested an increase in garbage rate to keep in line with costs, and then the 5% annual increase to street lighting fees for the next 3 years. We try and do them in couple-year segments so we don't have to do this every year and people can anticipate those additional costs. According to finance, we're trying to build some capital costs for additional street lighting replacements that need to occur. So The fire department didn't have a general inspection fee, so we added one in that included the fully loaded wage rates. And then daycares are now being taken over by the state of Idaho. We aren't regulating them at a local level. However, they're still requesting our local fire personnel to do the inspection of those facilities. So fire has been an inspection fee for that. Seems at a little bit of a discounted rate, but they once get into them, once the annual inspections go super fast. So the library, just increasing their janitorial fee for use of this room, state amount to cover actual costs. And Municipal Services has looked at several of the business license and permits and raised them percent to cover additional staffing costs, not for additional staff, but our costs have raised for staffing. We had a door-to-door solicitation license that hadn't been increased 2019, so I estimated a 5% annual increase for that one each year. So that looks like a bigger jump. And special events, we've increased 5%, but I know there's a lot of dialogue that needs to go on regarding special events, and a meeting coming up in August to talk about how maybe better deal with those special events. We have a fairly low fee to block off a one-block segment of town, but it's very time-intensive and staffing, and we don't want people to come in and pull a special event permit just to park a bunch of cars for one block one day. That wasn't the intention of that. So we really want to get into that a little bit deeper and bring something back to council for you all to consider later. Parks and Recreation, as you know, the Parks Director presented to you a special niche wall that they had artistically done, so they wanted to establish some fees associated with that are a little bit higher than the regular niche wall. And some other additional cemetery costs for some of the weekend use includes overtime for staff, so they added in some additional costs to those. And they looked at some of their recreation fees, and again, additional costs for scorekeepers and programming. So that is what they looked at there for increasing those. And they looked at the Jewett House wedding fees, increased those appropriately as well. The police department has requested increase in the traffic security control fees. That's for off staff time use, and that is associated with staffing costs. Water Department presented to you once, a city council meeting, once at a budget workshop, the water fee increases. That is included in this resolution. And then all of the proposed capitalization fees are also included in this. They are currently working with their contractor to do the tiered risk study, and they'll bring in that back to at a later date. Then they just removed some wording that was there regarding mobile park capitalization fees that are no longer needed. So at this point, all staff questions, staff stands question, and then we request you accept any public comments, there's nobody signed up, and approve the resolution accordingly.
So do I need to open this public hearing and then close? Is that?
If there's any questions for staff, and then open a public hearing.
Okay, thank you. All right. Kiki.
Dan, I think had his hand first.
Yeah, but
I think he's going to say the same thing that I was going to say.
Both wearing blue.
Girl first, you guys. I'm old school.
I just had a few things. There's some new fees in here. One was the fee on the chain occupancy, and the other, there's another one, an issuance of a temporary certificate of occupancy. So building can talk about that.
Ted is here.
Why would that be, if a building is permitted for one use and then another use with no building permit or structural changes comes to, can you speak to that question?
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Yeah, the additional fee isn't so much an additional fee. We're currently doing just charging regular permit fee based on lowest value that we have on the permit scale. And so it's roughly about $130. And so there's more time that goes into a change of use, just reviewing the occupancy type, if it fits, so there's multiple departments involved. And so we just established a minimum fee of $150.
For any type of occupancy that it is?
Type of occupancy.
Okay. And then why would, talk about the temporary certificate of occupancy. So it's the same thing?
Yeah, it's to capture some of the staff time, because once we issue a temporary certificate of occupancy, there's more time at our front counter that's being spent, there are re-inspections that have to be done. It just takes a lot more time. It is tiered because residentially, there's fewer staff members involved with the temporary, where commercially we'll have more departments involved with that portion of it.
Okay, still a little confusing. Then one of And that's all I have for you, Ted. But one of my other questions was, there were some fees raised for traffic control and policing for events, and I know that you said we're going to be talking about events altogether. By permit on some of these events, are those required services, or can they be provided by the event holder and not be part of their permit to use city services?
So the police one specifically was approved as special program in 2015. So that is for off-duty police officers to do private events. So if they're doing security for, I don't even know how to explain it. I don't know. Some celebrity, a house on the lake, that would be a separate situation than our special events.
So our special events rate would be if...
We'll let Walter explain it more because I'm stumbling over my words on this one. So that'll make it look much better.
I guess I'm trying to piece together where this comes in. Tell me where this event, this particular
That's for our
fee.
off-duty police officer program. So a good example of that is like during Black Friday, oftentimes Best Buy will hire off-duty police officers to stand outside of their business to make sure there isn't theft or riots or there's a celebrity golf tournament coming up. They're hiring us to run security for that type of thing, which is separate from city special events, private events that they're off-duty police officers with police powers, and that includes our bridges and the vehicles and the things that we do to function.
And that comes through the permit process, or no? It just is direct?
No permit, no city permits
Okay.
is they're
Just-
contracted with the police department.
And this is where the rate based?
Yes.
The direct contract with the police department?
Yeah, our base wages have gone up since the last this was looked at, so to cover those costs, we're
Okay.
asking for a fee increase.
Okay, that makes sense. I was trying to decide whether we're using traffic control and police security and all of that for these events, but this is off-duty, separate, directly contracted for those services with the police department.
Correct. Private events versus public events.
And that's what that rate is. Okay, I had the one on caps, but that's going to come with water. And then general inspection, that's not police, it's fire. I'm looking at you. The general inspection fee for fire, there's never been a general inspection fee for fire. What does a general inspection fee cover?
So when it's not associated with a building permit or a business license. So they have some other things that are coming up that would be general, and the daycare one just kind of brought to light that occasionally they have to do special inspections, and there's no way to recuperate rate for that. And I don't know exactly a good example to give you. Is stuff from fire here? Yes. Come on up. Really a good example.
Thank you, department people, for being here. It's really helpful to ask someone, not that Rheta is not very, very well informed, but
Yeah, some of the examples for fire would be for, look at different hazmat that comes through town. It could be for different processes, like tar pots, or a variety of things. There's a section in the fire code that has several operational type of things that will occur. That's kind of hard to describe. It's kind of like it's a catch-all type of, we had permits, operational permits. So for somebody doing like a tar pot or hazmat, hazardous materials are involved. It's just a general inspection fee for us to go out and ensure public safety.
okay. So I think it's a catch-all is the.
Yeah, it's I wish I had a better example of it.
Okay,
Thank you. Follow up.
Not one of the others. It's not a daycare, not a building.
a regular building.
Follow up one on that is that for our counseling office, we are required under Medicaid provision to have an annual fire inspection of the building. They come through and make sure that, they're big on, the corridors clear and the fire extinguisher is there. It's been serviced recently. Was that the?
No, these are for their operational type.
But you
of
didn't
permits.
charge, we didn't charge for that. Did we get charged or?
We not been charging. You didn't charge for that, no.
But that would be reasonable. Okay. Okay. Just saying. no.
Check look out.
Take a note, Jeff.
Look at
on
it.
that.
Thank you.
All right.
I'm through, Q.
Okay. Anybody else? Christie?
No, Kiki asked all my questions. I'm good.
Go ahead.
Thank you, Bill Green. I wouldn't leave you alone.
Oh, wow.
Bill, I just have some questions. We have a Park and Rec for a little bit, or I would ask you there. The Jewett House, first of all, you've done a fantastic job making the Jewett House revenue positive. Thank you for that.
Well, I can't take credit for that. Adam Rouse has done all that on
Oh.
his own. I let him run with it, and he's done an excellent job.
That's great. So I see that the deposit's 1,200 and it's proposed, then 1,200 for 4 hours. I haven't married in over, I mean, I'm married, but I haven't had the ceremony in, gosh, 28 years. So is that market rate? Are we
We're
captured?
below the market rate.
We are?
We've got a small little niche that we're working through, so full on wedding venue would cost a lot more. So what happens is, we found a sweet spot, so they have to go and do a rental company for tent and catering come in for the food. So we're just offering the location, which is the best around. So that's why it's a little bit lower than you might see at other venues.
Okay. And then I was just going to comment that the center of the niche is, I can't afford that bill. I understand it's for eternity, but I wanted to know, do you directly send to heaven or what? I mean, but I know it's beautiful, so.
So I was out there driving around this week, and Dale Young wanted a specific location. Well, he's already got a door engraved, got a little yin yang symbol on it. Looks really cool.
That's great. Thank you, Bill.
Yep.
Amy, got anything? I have to make a comment. I was looking forward to my 35-gallon trash can. It went up 45 cents. So I think that's a great deal. And I know we contract for trash, but thank you for being reasonable for trash. All right.
Mr. Mayor, overall, I would say these are very conservative, modest increases, and I appreciate what staff has done. I could make a motion, but I don't have it in front of me, so.
We need to open
You
and close
don't?
it.
Okay.
Close this. Open public comment. Anybody want to talk about these good deals? Hearing none, we close the public comment. All right, council, look for a motion, please.
Mr. Mayor, I make a motion to approve resolution number 25037, amending fees for services proposed by the Building, Finance, Fire, Library, Municipal Services, Parks, Recreation, Police, and Water Departments.
Second.
Double dipping here. All right, moved and seconded. Discussion.
Just note, with a very nice endorsement to do these fees by the Coeur d'Alene Press. So can't argue with that.
And there is no landlord fee.
All right, hearing all that, roll, please, Lee.
English?
Yes.
Wood?
Yes.
Miller? Evans? Gabriel? Gookin?
Yeah.
So we'll look for a motion to recess till Monday.
On Monday, okay.
Jeez. Why read that one? A motion to recess to July 21st, 2025, 12 noon here in the Library Community Room located at 702 East Front Avenue for a council workshop to discuss fiscal year 25-26 budget.
Second, can't wait.
Moved and seconded, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We are adjourned. Thank you, everyone.
Recess. Okay.